Hey, thanks for tuning in to Dan Warner Media. Today we're going to be airing a interview that I did with Wendy Allen Wright, who is the founder of the Hollywood Winner Circle and talent manager for Actors Facebook group. She's got an amazing amount of people on the talent managers for Actors Facebook group. I think there's 80,000 members, and she has a bunch of students at the Hollywood Winner Circle, and she wanted to interview me and have a Q&A with some of her students. So I did that, and it was really an amazing interview. It went on for a really long time. I cut it kind of short because I don't want this to go on. It was a 2-hour interview. So I cut it down, and there's a lot of really great questions, and I answer those questions, and it may be a lot of questions that you might have as well. So enjoy this, and I will talk to you on the other side.
Hey, it's Wendy Allen Wright, and we are at the Hollywood Winner Circle Academy, where we're teaching actors about the business of acting. This is not an acting class. That is something that they do on their own with professional acting teachers. This is about the business of acting, understanding your brand, who you are as an actor, marketing your product, always remembering that you should always be training. We should write that, ABT, always be training. And we are really committed to you learning from working actors here. That's, I think, the best way to learn how to become a working actor is to learn from working actors. So Dan Warner is a hell of a working actor. I'm going to show you his IMDb, kids. Let's get on over to IMDb. Just talking to my friend Joey Paul Jensen, so I need to get off first.
Oh yeah, I know Joey.
Yes, Joey and I are doing this project together. Let's see, Dan Warner. Okay, Dan, this is a ridiculous bio. I started typing in some of the shows you did. And then start, let's go to the bottom. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about by a long-term working actor, okay? Jeez. So let's go. Dirty John, which means I saw you in it. And then Dirty John, Grace and Frankie, SWAT, This Is Us, Better Things, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Days of Our Lives. I'm just going to skip to the ones that I'll say all of them. Black Monday, Will and Grace, Below, Lethal Weapon, It's Shorty, The Nick, TV movie, was it Chance, Aquarius, Ray Donovan, Bella and the Bulldogs, Supergirl, Bosch. Yeah, it's a great show. NCIS, Scandal, The Bridge, Castle, Mad Men, Kicking It, Vegas, Two Broke Girls, Big Love, Criminal Minds, Young and the Entourage, Private Practice, Passions, Hero, CSI, Daybreak, 24, Arrested Development, Cold Case, The Shield, Reverend, Dragnet, NCIS, CSI, Bernie Mac, Alias, CSI Miami. Hello.
Entourage is great. I love it.
I gave up when I started writing the names of your shows for the bicep. So, man, this is an incredibly impressive career.
Thank you. Thank you.
What is the key to becoming a consistent working actor?
Well, there are a lot of keys, and there are a lot of avenues, and there are a lot of ways to go about it. And I think each one is different depending on the person. And I've been asked many times, what advice would you give a new actor who's just starting out? How should they start? What could they do? And I always tell them, and they think a lot of people think I'm kidding, but my background was, I was a door-to-door salesman for a long time, for about 10 years. And there were many, many times during my stint as a door-to-door salesman where I wondered, what in the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is awful. You only got paid when you sold something. There was a tremendous amount of rejection, and that's an understatement. I started out doing stand-up comedy, so I would write and perform stand-up comedy. So I would tell a new actor that if you want to have some staying power in this business, get a job for 3 months. It doesn't have to be your life's work. 90 days. Go get a job as a door-to-door salesman, and then go and write and do stand-up for at least 6 months. Go do open mics and all that. And the amount of training that you will get from the rejection to dealing with people to the stand-up comedy. Death is the number 2 fear of people around the world. Number 2. Number 1, as most people know, is public speaking. And so if you can conquer the public speaking thing, the fear of getting up in front of people, and couple that with the rejection of door-to-door sales, I give you a lot of hope. I think things. Now, listen. Obviously, most people aren't going to go out and do that. But I would say the having whatever you can figure out, whatever you can conjure up in your mind and body to figure out the stick-to-itiveness of this. It's a marathon. It is not a sprint. Wendy, you said something I was listening to the other day, maybe even yesterday, and you were talking about how much training and school a doctor does, how much school a lawyer does. Even plumbers have to go through a test. And, and it's years and years and years. And actors will turn around and go, well, I'm going to give this acting thing a try. I heard it's pilot season. I'm going to go see if this works, see if I can get on a show. That ain't how it works. You don't give this a try. This is something you do or you don't do. And you touched on it earlier tonight when I logged in. So it's something that, like you said, it's got to be, or maybe John said, it's got to be this passion, this sort of, it's got to be inside you that you're like, I have to do this. It's not like I want to do this. It's like I have to do this. So you have to want to have to do this. I think.
You have to want to have to.
Yeah, you have to want to have to do this. I think is
so good.
Maybe that'll be my catchphrase.
In the Winter Circle Academy, I mean, this is not the place to come if you want an overnight solution and overnight success. This is the place to come if you really want, okay, how do I build strong sales tools and marketing tools? This is sales business. It's a sales business for everybody. As a manager for many years, my job is to sell actors. When I'm an agent, you sell actors. As an actor, you sell your product, which is you. You might hire some staff, an agent or manager to sell with you, but believe me, you are selling a product, and you better know your product. And a lot of people don't know what's unique about them. How are you going to sell a product when somebody has so many choices? And that's just about anything. It could be about anything. What differentiates this scissor from some other scissor? Why is this scissor the one that a person should buy? You have to know how to speak sales of your product. What is so unique about what you're selling? And what is it why do they need to buy it? And then you have to have visual examples of it working, or the product working, which is you.
Yeah, for sure.
You didn't have a lot of digital stuff going on when you first started. I mean, obviously, we were in a different world, weren't we, Dan? It was.
I remember wanting to be on Dexter so bad that I went to Oz. That store Oz. They have Halloween stuff and all that. And I bought about a half a dozen severed foots. And I put them in shoe boxes with my headshot and my resume and all this stuff. And I found out who the producers were, and I sent them the severed foot to their office saying, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. It didn't work. I never got on Dexter. But I will tell you, that kind of stuff didn't bother me because I was a door-to-door salesman. So, like, you do all this work and you put in all this effort, and then nothing comes of it. Cut to, I got very fortunate and booked a national commercial. It was a campaign years ago for DirecTV, and I was the DirecTV guy. I was the installer, and we did 20 spots over a 2.5-year period. And so suddenly I had DirecTV money, which was quite wonderful. And so I put together a Viewmaster. You remember the Viewmasters, the 3D? Yep. So I put together a Viewmaster. I ordered, I think I ordered 500 of them. They were $20 a piece. So I spent about $2,000 on Viewmasters, and I mailed them to every casting director in Hollywood. I'm not making this up. 10 or maybe it was 12 years later, I go into an audition, And one of the pictures on my Viewmaster was me in a lab coat, a white lab coat, and I was by an ambulance. I was, the caption was something about being a doctor. And this particular commercial audition was for BMW, and there were two guys in a lab, and they were doing some scientist stuff, and they needed guys in white lab coats. I had sent this Viewmaster to this casting director 12 years earlier. I walked in and they go, "Hey, Dan, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, hi." And I don't remember who it was. And they go, "We were cleaning out our office last week and we found your Viewmaster." And for a hoot, they were looking through it and they go, "Holy shit, he's got a white lab. You know what? Let's call him in." So that sort of administrative work 12 years later was getting me auditions. And I don't know how many more it got me over the years. And again, obviously that was very expensive, but I had the money at the time. But I never stopped like trying to figure shit out. Like I always wanted like, what's next? What's next? How can I be a series regular? How can I get on this show, that show, that kind of thing. And at the end of the day, it was like you were just saying earlier, it's training. Stand-up comedy. I did stand-up comedy for 15 years. I was at the Groundlings Theater. I was at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. Studied with Richard Lawson, Jocelyn Jones, and you just keep studying with these great teachers, and you gain this knowledge over time. In 2019, I think I booked 12 jobs that year. 6 of them were from directors that I had worked with prior to that. And so if you stick around long enough, people will get to know you, and they'll go, "Shit, Dan Warner, he showed up on time. We never had to look for him. He wasn't at craft service. He was right there. He was watching us put the lights up, hit his mark, set his lines, got the hell out of the way, moved the story forward." And so he's a great person to hire for whatever you want, because we know when we hire him, he's going to get the job done.
Definitely.
So it's just work begets work and activity begets activity. And like you said, never stop studying, never stop learning, go to classes. And so that's why, 2020 was a really weird year for everyone. And I thought, oh, what do I do now? Everyone's got to pivot. Everyone's got to, do something else. I've been teaching a commercial acting workshop for Richard Lawson for years, and I decided to take the show on the road. And so I called Richard. I said, "Hey, I'm going on my own." He said, "God bless you. Have at it."
Wow.
So I started a YouTube channel 1 year ago this month. And so Dan Warner Media on YouTube, and I do tips and tutorials and all the stuff. Well, you saw some of my videos. I posted some of them on your site. And it's all about giving back to actors and letting them straighten that curve. Listen, we didn't have this shit, Wendy, when we started out. We didn't have people going, "Hey, go take a tutorial, go take a workshop, do a Zoom class. Go on YouTube. They'll tell you."
Thank you for coming over to my channel.
Sorry.
What's that?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So we didn't have the opportunity that people have now, as far as getting free advice and free, tutorials and tips and all of that. That said, the free advice is out there, and the gurus have come out of the woodwork in 2020. People that have very little experience and are, posing as people who know. And you go look them up on IMDb, and they've got 4 credits, and 3 of them are short films. And you go, this person doesn't know anything. So you've got to really vet the people that you are working with. You've got to
Go
vet
on IMDb Pro. Like sometimes in TMFA, someone will say, make a comment or answer a question. And if you look up at IMDb, and we try not to allow that. But if someone comes through, go to IMDb Pro, they'll have no TV credits at all. That is not something you don't want to learn from them, those kind of people, because you can't teach you what they don't know how to do themselves.
Correct. Well, there's a YouTube channel out there, and the guy calls himself the something Academy. I don't remember what it was, Actors Academy or whatever. And he's got a bunch of subscribers.
That young kid,
the Asian kid.
The Asian kid, yeah, I've seen him.
No one knows his name. All the information he gives you can find on Google, for God's sakes, and know it. Like, it's just sort of mystery, but he's charging people for classes. And you go,
No,
this guy doesn't know anything. And he's dinging. Listen, the problem is people prey on these actors, and these poor actors have no money. They're trying to do their best to get ahead, to get this thing rolling. Listen, it's hard enough. When you're getting bad advice, it's taking you the wrong direction. And that's worse than trial and error, and everyone knows trial and error sucks. So anyway, just vet the people that you are, and you do a great job, Wendy, as far as finding people who know what they're talking about. Surround yourself with people who are working actors who are actually doing it, and it's
a beautiful channel, you guys. I mean, I love his video.
Oh, thank you.
I love his videos because he knows what he's talking about, and everybody should subscribe. I'm subscribed. Everyone subscribe to his YouTube channels. Watch his videos. He's going to teach you a lot about the business because he knows the business. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to work this business. He knows how to build relationships. He knows how to stick it out for the long haul. He knows how to book an audition. He knows how to audition. So that's the kind of people you want to listen to. And that young kid has like almost 200,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I listen to his videos sometime and I go, what is he telling them? Oh my God.
Yeah. You want to write everyone and go, don't stop, don't listen to this guy. You're going the wrong way.
I know. But you know what? I used to get very upset when people were going the wrong way, but my life coach has told me, Dan, that I can only provide the train and people can get on it or not.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's right. Listen, you can only do what you can do, Wendy, and people will subscribe to my channel, they'll listen to my stuff, or they won't. But if I continue to give them good content, then they will, build it and they will come. And so, you're going to build the base. People are going to come. They're going to listen to. They're going to go, holy shit! They're going to tell their friends. They're going to go, this guy. Look, it just you just do what you love, and I love actors, and I want to help them, and and so.
It's the same for everyone here, though. I mean, you can't control the outcome. Who's going to buy your product, who's not going to buy it.
Right.
I want to also mention that Dennis Marburger is here, and Dennis is an award-winning national sales. How do you call that, Dan? Dennis is like, he's an expert at sales.
Okay. Yeah.
What is your title, Dennis?
I don't have a title, Wendy.
Sales guru extraordinaire.
Well, that's what you've called me many times, yes.
Because Dan is a master of sales and setting an outline of what your goals are and then hitting them,
Right.
achieving them.
Right.
And I'm always glad when I see your face, Dan. It gives me a sigh of relief. I don't know why.
Great.
So, Dan, I have to ask, what did you sell door to door? Because I'm a former door to door salesman as well.
Well, I started out selling a photographic package, and this was maybe 30 years ago, where we sold discounts on film processing, enlargements. This is before digital, and so it was all analog, and we had, those Kodak booths where you drive up and drop your film off, and then people don't know anything about that, and pick your film up, but we would mail film to them, they would mail it in, we would develop, or the lab would. And then later on, I was selling outdoor electric lighted signs to businesses. Now, when I think back at what I had to go through and what all the things that had to happen for you to get a sale, you had to walk into a business, you had to find the owner of the business, you had to make sure the owner had an hour out of nowhere of time to listen to you, give him or her a sales pitch, or them, and then you had to pitch them in their store, and then write up the contract and sell them, and then the check that you got, the deposit that you got, was your commission. So if you didn't get a deposit, you still didn't have your commission. So you had to talk someone into a sign and out of some money. They met you 90 or 120 minutes ago, and they had to be able to go, yeah, I trust this person. Here's a check for $1,500. And then when they said, who do we make it out to? And you go, oh, I have a stamp, because I work for a company called Gold Signs, and my stamp said Gold Signs or Dan Warner. And so I would stamp it, and every once in a while they go,
wait a minute,
what's with the or Dan Warner? And I'm like, oh, I have to authorize the check, make sure the funds are in the account and stuff like that. So you had to It was a whole dance, man, and it was. I look back on it, and I go, I have no idea how I'm not homeless right now. I have no idea.
Dan?
It's a numbers game.
Well, listen, it's a numbers game, and I love this. It's a numbers game, just like auditions are a numbers game, because if you go on 10 auditions, you get 2 callbacks, and you book 1 job. All right, let's say that job pays you $1,000 for sake of money. So now, each audition you go to that you didn't get, that audition is going to pay you $100. So instead of going on the audition and going, oh shit, I didn't get it. Yeah, but you made $100. Go on the audition, make it. Now let's say it's $2,000 and you made $200.
Well, this is an interesting way. Did you see how he's flipping that?
So
So
now
you divide that by the amount of auditions that you didn't get, and that's how much you got paid for each of those auditions.
Yes.
When I started this, I learned my audition my audition ratio and my booking ratio by keeping track of all the things I submitted for, etc. And then you can turn it into a much easier mindset. Yep.
Much easier mindset. And now,
right now I'm at about $1.80.
Oh shit! Well,
That is a damn. When you book a job, divide the auditions you did not book by that amount you got paid.
yeah. But listen. You do a national commercial, and you make 30 grand, and it took you 6 auditions to get to that. That's pretty damn good money. Because I'm using $1,000 or $2,000. It's not that. It's you book a national commercial, it's 10 times that. So you're talking about $1,000 an audition. Like, who wouldn't go if someone called you and said, "Hey, we have an audition for you. Get it or not, we're going to send you a check for $1,000." How many actors would be on time, man, ready to go? They'd be like, "Yeah, $1,000."
That is changing the whole way. Can I use that in my coaching?
Yes, of course.
I want to ask you, what do you think about this non-union, commercial, lower-paying types of stuff going on?
Well, listen, I don't like it. I don't like the non-union stuff. However, that said, I've done non-union work, and I would have lost my house had I not done some non-union work.
I hear you.
I'm what do they call it?
Vicor?
Yes, thank you. So I went Vicor because sometimes the phone slows down, and if the phone stops ringing, if you're just sitting around going, "Gosh, I really wish there'd be some union jobs, but there's a job here for $5,000, a $5,000 buyout, and I've got a mortgage to pay." Listen, Chase Morgan doesn't give a shit if I haven't had an audition. They still want their money every month. And so for me, it's a matter of survival.
Can you explain what FICOR? Let me ask you 2 questions. One, maybe you can tell them what FICOR is, and 2, my personal question about it: has it affected It doesn't seem to have affected your career. When
Not
did you FICOR?
even a little bit. And I know people are very. You've got a lot of union actors who are like, "Oh, don't work up, you better not at FICOR. Oh, what are you doing?" It's like I don't give a shit. I need to pay my bills. I need to keep my house. I need to do all these things. Financial core is where you pay fewer dues. You can work union or non-union. The only things are you cannot win a SAG award and you cannot vote. Oh no. And so those are the only caveats. But I will tell you, if you're a pro-union person, then do that.
Exactly. Well,
If you need to pay the bills, there's been some lean years where I was like, oh shit, do I really have to go get a job? I don't know what I would do. And so working some non-union jobs, listen, that's kept the ship afloat a few times.
Where do you get your health insurance through? Does it through the union at all? Can you still qualify?
I still get it through the union. I still get full everything. Benefits.
And only your SAG projects get accredited to that, not the non-union ones, but every SAG project you do?
They all get credited. As far as I know, they've all gotten credited. I don't. Yeah, listen. I like the union. They've done a lot of good things, but the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and a lot of times, and there's so much money wasted and all those things. And they dropped the ball a bunch of times, and listen, the landscape has changed over the last 20 years for sure, especially commercially, where a lot more non-union jobs, and even the SAG jobs are not as good. And there's been a lot of changes, but I think at the end of the day, you've got to do whatever you can do to move your ball forward. So be creative. I've had people say, "Oh, you do not yet do non-union." Really? Yeah.
There's some good non-union projects. I mean, you can do some great feature films.
Of course, indie films, and there's a bunch of projects that people want to do that are independent and that don't have to go through the union and all the other nonsense. And so, I say, go act. If that's what you want to do, go act. Whatever it takes. And again,
you can make your own personal decision about that. But if you talk to like those SAG Nazis, they're going to be like scab, and you're
right.
But I don't care either. I think that you have to do what's right for you.
Yeah.
And
what other people think is none of your business.
Are you in the program? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say this. But not what people think of me is none of my business.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of programs, Wendy.
Yeah, programs. Let's say more. So, Dennis, you have your hand up. What's your question? Do you have a question too? Your hand up.
I already got it in there talking with Dan earlier.
Okay, let's raise our hands, people. Who's got questions? We have 33 of us here. What questions do you have for Dan? Otherwise, I will keep asking them. Do you guys have? Okay, Dan Schmidt. Sorry, I put your hand up before, honey. I just wanted to move the picture around, and I couldn't put your hand up. Hi, you.
Hi. Hello, Wendy.
You good?
Hello, and my hardest goodbye. How are you? Hey, Dan. Quick question. I have kind of a technique question. So a lot of acting, and I heard Timothy Chalamet say this on a podcast, a lot of acting has been like obsessed with realism, right? Being real in an audition as far as, but part of that when you audition, right? I mean, real life is boring sometimes, right? So you have to create like a character. So I was just wondering, do you think it's ever too big in an audition, too big to do something? And you've done a mix of comedy and drama, right? So I was just wondering, I know you have to know the genre you're auditioning for, but is it ever too big? Is it ever too much? Or does it depend on the director? Or have you ever gotten that note in an audition? That's too big, bring it back.
Right. Well, I will tell you, that's a great question, Dan, because back in the day, year and a half ago, when we were going into the room for auditions, especially commercials, the session runner, the guy or girl behind the camera, would inevitably, 98% of the time, go. They give you a quick description of here's what they want you to do. Here's the thing. You come in, you walk over here, you stand up, you pick this up, you look at your husband or wife, and then you set it back down and you say this and this. And then they would always end it with very small, very real. Please go very small. We don't want big. We don't want over the top. I learned a long time ago to be small. When you say life is boring, I say life is super interesting. And so, Steven Spielberg said of Tom Hanks one time, he goes, I could just sit and watch him think for hours. Because when the camera's right here, you don't have to do much. So if you're in the park, Dan, and and this was a commercial audition that I had where a guy, I was a cop on a horse in New York, and a guy went running by in a hot dog suit, but he was naked from the waist down. And so as a cop, I had to look at the guy. Now, so I put myself, my philosophy has always been be a real person in a real place having a real experience. So if I'm a real cop, I've seen everything. So a guy running in a hot dog suit, naked from the waist down, yeah, all right. So here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do this.
That's true.
Because no one does that. No one ever does that. And so what I did was I just watched the guy and then just looked and thought, like, what the fuck am I going to do now? Okay, there's
Right.
I got to arrest him, whatever. So it's in the callback, and the director says, and you hardly ever get this note. And he goes, can you go a little bigger? And I said, sure. So the next time I went, and he's like, okay, great. Can you go even bigger? And I said, sure. So I gave him this much each time. I inched it up, like just a little bit. It's just like when they say, can you move camera right? And you don't go like that. You just move a little camera right. And so the same thing has to do with being big as far as your character goes. And again, depends on the genre. If you're doing Schitt's Creek, you're going to have to be a little larger than life. But for the most part, it's all very real, and everything's funnier when it's subtle, and everything's funnier when it's based in reality and when it's grounded. And so I would say, there's been a few times, but I always err on the side of that.
I like that better too. I get that conflicting advice in class. Sometimes the teacher will give me a note and they'll say, I need to see more, right? And it's always vague, right? It's like, just give me more.
Right.
And okay. And then I go too big and that's theatrical, take it back. So I think I need to trust myself a little more, and like you said,
the more can be internal too, Dan. The more can be inside, like
raise the stakes.
Right. Like so there's more going on in your mind, because when people see your face and there's shit going on in there, if there's more going on in there rather than it being physical, it could just be internal. But I would rather do less. Listen, Ed Harris said in an interview one time, he says, when they yell action and I walk into a room and I don't know what to do, I don't do anything. And it's like, right, that's exactly right. If you don't know what to do, don't do anything. Because that's real life. Real life is subtle, and real life is very minute and small. So
Who are you training right now, Danny?
Me?
No, Dan Schmidt. Who are you training?
So I've trained with James, and right now I'm in Lisa London's class. And I've been training with her for months now. And then so I would just get conflicting advice from like her. She usually says, don't go too crazy with it. But then the guy Rich Gotiri I train with in Michigan, he says like sometimes I'll do that realism, and I think what like Dan said, I think when I'm doing it and it's subtle, it's because the stakes aren't high enough. I think it's just I'm not being specific enough, and I'm starting to realize that because he said that one time. He goes, "Yeah, that was great. You seem really natural, but I'm bored." Is what he said. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I just have to raise the stakes. He goes, "Because it's boring." And I was like, "Because if you can have a conversation on camera that looks like real people having a conversation, but raise the stakes," I think is what he means. But yeah.
Yeah, but I also wonder why the word boring is coming up with you in terms of you to like
it's tough, I like to treat it like just keep going, keep showing up. That's what
Keep showing up, Dan. You're doing great. I'm really excited for you. Let's see. I want to ask a couple of questions. We have Jeremy, Lenora, but Dan Warner, can you tell me when your class is so that we can get that in the chat so people know when you're teaching your class? Now that you're a ranger.
Yeah, I'm not doing a regular class right now. I do private coaching.
Okay.
If they go to danwarnermedia.com, there's a coaching tab there where I do private coaching. And I'm going to start doing workshops. And the workshops will be, they're going to start out with commercial acting. And because I just booked 2 months ago my 110th commercial. So 110 over the last 20 years. So it's been a really good run. And so I've been teaching a commercial acting workshop for years, like I said, with Richard. And so now I'm going to take this and make it a workshop. I'm going to make it super reasonable for actors. I think it's going to be like $29, and they're going to get an hour's worth of class time. And so that's going to start, I think, at the end of July. But if they go to, Dan Warner Media, and I have secrets to self-tape success button there. If they type in their email, they'll be on my list, and I can send them the information when the workshops are happening.
That's good, and I want to know too.
Yeah, so that way, and I'll keep you open on that.
I can get them to do that.
You also have to remember that when you go on an audition, let's say you're going on a commercial audition,
Yeah.
and you're auditioning for the Gap. So you go on the audition and you don't get it. Now, there's 1,000 reasons why you didn't get the job. None of them have anything to do with you. And the truth of the matter is, you're not just auditioning for the Gap. You're auditioning for the Gap, Old Navy, Snickers, shaving cream. You're auditioning for whatever that casting director is casting for the next month or two. Because if I go in an audition and they decide they want an Asian woman, listen, I've got range, Wendy. I don't have that much range. I can't play an Asian woman. So if they decide they're going to go a different direction, but they go, God, Dan was really great, they're going to call you in for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And so just because you don't get something, I don't remember who the woman was, but she auditioned for something, some big casting director in New York. And she didn't get it, but she was really great. She was for a nun. And this was back when they had VHS tapes. And so he took her tape and he put it on his shelf. A year later, he was casting for Gladiator. A year later, he goes, oh, this chick. He remembered, and he put her tape in, and they called her in, and she was playing opposite of the guy. She played the sister of the guy, Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. And she got a lead role in Gladiator a year after she auditioned for something else.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
So it's the rejection thing is not, people can't take it as rejection because it's not always rejection. And again, I have a YouTube video that everyone should watch, and it's called 10 Reasons Why You Didn't Get the Job. And it's fantastic because and it's not 10 reasons, there's 1,000 reasons why you didn't get the job. The great news is none of them have anything to do with you. It's all, we want someone taller, fatter, less fat, skinnier, less skinny, more hair, less hair, Asian, black, white, red, doesn't matter. There's 15 people making a decision about one commercial. And let's say you had the best read, but you're playing a family and they have to hire the kid first, and the kid has black curly hair. I'm not going to be the dad. He's not going to be my kid. They're going to have to hire a guy who has dark hair or something.
Depends on who you marry, though.
But it doesn't. But you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter, all you have to do is go in and do your best possible work and then forget about it. And then move on to the next thing.
Absolutely. I'm putting that link in the chat, the 10 reasons why you didn't get the job, which was right in line with those 51 reasons I posted in GMFA the other day.
Yeah.
I'm going to put your video underneath that post. Let's see, we got 4 more questions, and I don't want us to run out of time. Jeremy Boyamba. Does that just sound like a star? Jeremy Boyamba.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for this webinar. Then you have an impressive resume and stuff, so good job and congratulations. The question I have, what advice would you give the 20 years old self, like in this business?
My 20-year-old self, I would say none of the stuff that you think is important is important. 20 years ago, or a little longer than that, I wanted to be a star, a movie star, rich and famous and all those things. And I would say be careful what you wish for, and just be happy being a working actor. All the rest of this will come, and that there's a lot of stuff that's the stuff that you think is important when you're younger. As you get older, you'll find it's not that important. The other thing is to strike when the iron is hot. So if you get a job on a show and it's a guest star, a recurring role, you've really got to. That's when the work starts. You can't kick back and go, okay, got this job. It's all going to work out. Listen, DirecTV put me on the cover of the Hollywood Reporter in 2001. That was a huge thing. I thought back then in 2001, 20 years ago, I'm on the cover of the Hollywood Reporter. Game over, man. I just, all I have to do now is sit around and wait for the phone to ring and accept or reject these offers that are going to come flooding in. Well, here's what's interesting about the Hollywood Reporter. They change the cover every day. And my face was on the cover on Wednesday. And on Thursday, it wasn't on the cover anymore, and no one gives a shit. And so it didn't really do anything for me. But what I should have done then is stepped up my game at that point. Hey, I'm on the cover of the Hollywood Reporter, start sending that blast out, and now there was no social media back then, but just amp up everything as far as promoting yourself. And study, continue to learn, continue to go to class, and don't take anything for granted.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
You spoke about reality, but I wanted to know what is a great suggestion that you would tell upcoming beginner actors to get out of their head? A lot of times I find myself becoming the character, but then I check out, kind of becoming like self-aware.
Yeah. So my process when it comes to that is if I am a cop, because I get a lot of cop roles. Mm-hmm. So my big thing is what would Dan Warner do if he was really a cop? What would I do in that situation? And so when I put myself in that situation, what ends up happening is it's all based on reality. Like I would act this way or I would act that way. And so it's not a character that's over the top or it's just, it's how would I do this? And so that's really the advice that I would give someone to get out of your head. It's like, how would you? So if you were an annoyed waitress, you've been annoyed before, I'm sure. And so have you ever been in the food service industry?
No.
Okay, but you've been annoyed. And you've been in restaurants and you've seen annoying people. You probably have friends that are annoying when they order food. And you can only imagine how awful it would be to be a waitress when someone keeps returning something or has a bunch of different specific things they want. And so instead of being over the top, it's like, how would you really react? And the way you would really react would be, you'd paste your little fat smile on, and you would look at them, and then you would deliver your dialogue. But I think my go-to is, how would I do this? How would I really do this? Now, you also have to take into consideration who the character is and how the character is, how she is and what she would, and so you have to take that into consideration. So put a little bit of yourself in there. A little bit of how would you really do this? But again, you have your before and you have your character and how they are and their past and what's going on in the scene. But yeah, pull a lot of yourself into it, and you'll find that you get out of your head. And listen, I've done stuff where my friends call me up and they said, "Hey, I saw you on Bosch," and I said, "Yeah, it was how fun was that?" I'm like, "It was great." They go, "You weren't really doing anything. You were kind of playing yourself," and I'm like, Yeah, it was just okay. And they're like, "Well, that doesn't. You were really acting," and I'm like, "Well, I was." But I was just, you know what I mean? So that will help you get out of your head if you just go, listen, at the end of the day, you can abandon everything and all the little voices and go, I'm just going to be myself and do this situation like I would do it. Okay. And if they want to change that, if the director gives you a note or change the direction, then do that. But start with how you would do it. And that will help you get out of your head so you're not like, oh shit, the character's this and this and this and how would she do? It's like, how would you do it? Okay. And then go from there. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you bet.
Jen, was that Jennifer?
Am I next?
Yes.
Great. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for taking my question, Dan.
Yeah.
So, I'm a mom of 2 teen actors, and I'm just the one that drives the car wherever they tell me to go. And Wendy will tell you. So, my question is, are your classes available for teenagers? They're 14 to 15.
Yes.
Fantastic. And do you have a recommendation of which one they should take first? We've been doing this for about 3 years.
Okay. You know, I'm going to put my curriculum. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this, because I'm going to have several workshops that I'm going to do in order. The workshops that I want to do are going to be very specific. In other words, I'm going to probably do a whole workshop on the beginning audition and the slating process, because you can actually book a job in the slate. People have actually booked the job and or lost a job in the slate. And so slating is actually, believe it or not, it's a skill in and of itself. And so what I'm going to end up doing is having stuff that's very, very specific so that people don't have to wade through a bunch of information to get to what they want. And so the other thing I'll probably do is do a workshop where I'm talking about 18 and under. Like, here's the best thing to do for 18 and under. You know, kids are so damn charming all on their own, and if all they have to really do is be themselves, and listen, the casting people fall in love, like your son there. All he has to do is smile. Like, he is so castable. Oh my God. So I'll have specific things, and if you go to my website, there's a Secrets to Self-Tape Success. If you click on that, to get to the PDF, you put in your email address. And so I'm going to gather email addresses, so when I do my workshops, I'll send out an email saying, this is the workshop I'm doing, and you can either tune in or not tune in. So if you go to danwarnermedia.com, put your email in there, and then I'll have it. And so when I do the workshops, you can pick and choose whatever one is best for you. But I would say the beginning one, the 18 and under one, is going to be good. You know, any sort of audition and slating and self-tapes, because self-tapes are, they're the wave of the future. And even with the pandemic, you know, slowing down, I've talked to a lot of casting directors and some session runners, and they're like, yeah, man, we're going to continue to do self-tapes, because, you know, why not get 140 self-tapes come in instead of having 140 actors come into our office? We can find who we want and then bring the 10 in for the callback. And so any self-taping stuff, I'll talk about lighting and you know, the easiest way to do things. But the 7 secrets to, my secrets to self-tape success, there's a lot of stuff in there that's also very handy. And if you go onto my YouTube channel, you can pick and choose and find, you know, there's a slating one, there's a, you know, you can just peruse around. There's a bunch of really great information there. Yeah.
We will absolutely do that, as will I.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm babysitting. Someone just dropped their dog off with me. So look what I have. Look at this. Oh, wait, Jennifer, thanks for your question. Jean Vavra. So does anyone have any more questions? Get your hand up. Now's the last chance to get your hand up. Jeannie.
First of all, I want to say thank you for your words tonight, because I really needed to hear this. Last week, I got on a veil for a commercial, and I didn't get it. And all I could think about was, why does this sting so much more?
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn it around and make a gratitude jar. And I just loved everything you said tonight.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question, I'm hoping you have a tip for me, because lately I've had this happen a couple times, where I take a line in a script, I do it wrong, and now it's ingrained in my head, and now I'm focusing all my energy on fixing that and not on the rest. Do you have any tricks to, like, wipe the slate?
So give me an example. So in other words, there's a big chunk of dialogue, and then there's one or two words that you get mixed up on.
I get totally wrong, and it changes the meaning, and I just can't. I seem to it's ingrained in my mind now.
So there's a few things that I do. First of all, I slow down when it comes to that phrase. I did a scene in Aquarius, and I was doing a scene with David Duchovny, and there was a line in there where I was eating a donut, so I had to be eating, and then I had to say, "Is there anything you need me for? Is there anything you need me to do for you right now?" And I couldn't figure it out. Is there anything you? And so I kept screwing it up, and so I made it into a bit of a sarcastic moment. And I slowed it down, and I'm eating my donut, and I said, "Is there anything you need for me to do for you right now?" and they loved it, and all it did was break that sentence up so that I could get through it, because it was a bit of a tongue twister. So, is there anything you need me to do for you right now? So I just changed it so where I was like, "You can kiss my ass. I don't like what you're saying. I'm going to say it this way." Now, listen, if they had me do it differently, then I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. But when I did it, everyone loved it, and it worked. The other thing is when you're memorizing a script, the way I get through it is I think of it as a story or a joke. Listen, if you're at work and someone tells you a joke, for the most part, you can go home that night. They told you the joke one time. You can go home that night and tell your husband or boyfriend that joke. Because you're like, "Oh, that was a funny joke," or a story that someone told at work. Now, you're going to be paraphrasing a little bit, but you're able to tell that story. And so the script is no different. The script is a little, or your sides, that's a little story that you have to tell. And so if you just tell that story, even not being word for word, just tell the story and then read the script again, your sides again, and then tell that story. Tell it as you're telling your friend or your husband or a wife or whatever, and then you tell that, and then you look again, and so those words will start to come to you. Here's the other thing that's super important. How you feel is way more important than what you say. Let me say that again. How you feel is more important than what you say. So if you're really passionate about something and you're telling this story, if you mix up a few words or if you invert a few words, they're not going to give a shit about that if you're delivering a really great performance because of the way you feel about it. And so actors get hung up too much on being letter perfect and being word for word. And most of the time, they don't care. Listen, on the day of, you can be word for word. And if there's a lot of dialogue, they're going to be cutting back and forth, and you're not going to be spewing all that dialogue all at once anyway. So how you feel about it is more important than what you say. So don't get too caught up about getting the words right or any of that. A lot of times, paraphrasing is okay. I don't know if that helps, Gene. I hope it does.
It does, absolutely. I always get caught up in the word.
Yeah, don't get caught up in that. Just be passionate about what you're talking about, and or despondent or whatever that character is calling for, and just be in that. And if you stumble and you flub, you can get a job by flubbing, because when you flub, you're showing the real Gene. They see a glimpse of you in there. So they see that real person. And that's the first time they see that person, because you're putting on a performance. And if you flub and and then you pick up where you left off, they're going to go, "Oh, this is a professional." They're just going to plow through, because they know we're going to cut around that if we don't like it. But it's a real moment, because it really happened. So I don't worry about that shit.
I love it. Some more people raised their hand. Are you with us for a few more minutes?
Yep.
You have a heart out. Okay. Cynthia Aguilar, Rose, and Lenora. Cynthia Aguilar.
Hey, Dan. Okay, so my question is, if it's your first time on set, do you have any tips on what to do or how to carry yourself? This is
Yes.
your first time on set.
Yes, I have tons of them. So it's going to be very daunting. Everyone's moving around. Everything is, number one, you're going to get one rehearsal. I know that people go, well, when I did Streetcar in college, we rehearsed for 13 weeks. It's like, well, you're going to get one rehearsal. And you're going to get one rehearsal with somebody that you've not met before. And so it's usually the first time that you're meeting them. My best advice is you should know your lines backwards and forwards. Not only that, you should know their lines backwards and forwards. You should know everyone's lines backwards and forwards. Don't do it, Cynthia. Don't do it until you get it right. Do it until you can't get it wrong. That is the best advice I've ever got. Don't do it until you get it right. Do it until you can't get it wrong. Get there early. Go through hair and makeup. Take it all in. Like, just listen, take it all in. Show up. They're going to have a blocking rehearsal. You go and just listen to the director, listen to the first AD. They're going to tell you what to do. You go here, you go here. And just, if you're so ready that you know when to hit your mark, deliver your lines, and get the hell out of the way, they're going to remember you for that. They're going to remember that woman who came in, hit her line, hit her mark, set her. And here's the other thing. Have 2 or 3 different choices ready. Don't do it different than you did it in the callback. Don't change a bunch of stuff. Do it just like you did in the callback. That's why they hired you. But also have a couple of different options just in case. So when you get there, you're ready with the way you did it in the callback, and you also have a couple of options if they give you that leeway to do it a different way. If they say, now do it how you would do it, or have fun with it. A lot of times if they have it in the can, they've got their take they want, they're like, okay, let's do one more. Do it the way you want to do it. And so then you have that option. Listen, the director's going to remember that. The producers are going to remember that. And this is not the last thing they're going to do. And so I don't know if you heard earlier, you'll get jobs. I've gotten a lot of jobs with directors that I've already worked with because they go, oh, yeah, that guy. He was great. I remember him. So don't let it be, listen, they hired you for a reason, Cynthia. So go on the set, be confident. You're there for a reason. They hired you for what you can do. Go in there and do exactly what you did in the callback, and just be super, super prepared. Preparation takes the pressure off of luck. So
Yes.
be prepared and show up, and it'll be the best experience of your life, I think.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And they're the best. Cynthia Aguilar. And thank you for your question. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you are here. Rose, where are you? Rosie?
Hi.
Hey, Rose, how are you?
Hi. I'm good. My question is, I'm struggling at the minute because we're recreating a film, Carol, from back in 2015, but the scene that we're doing is really emotional, and I struggle. I have the techniques, it's just getting the techniques into my acting to get it into a very emotional, to where, like, the client is more, like, realistic than, like, so it's not, like, sort of animated sort of acting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of struggling with that because it goes straight from a non-emotional to a very emotional scene.
Okay. Well, there are certain triggers that I will use to get emotional. I'm using one right now. Because when I think about this process, it automatically gets me emotional.
Yeah.
And I had my dog died a few months ago. And before my dog died, I had another dog, and he died as well. And I was doing this film, and the film, there was a part in the film where my son, I'm running after my son, and he falls down this cliff, and he dies. Now, I'm not married, I don't have any kids, and so how do you get to that point where you're super emotional because your son died. Now that's a stretch, that's a reach. And so what I did is I used my dog as my trigger. And so if I'm running and running and running and I get to the edge of the cliff and I see my dog down there and he's gone, he's hit a rock, he's dead, how am I going to feel about that? So here's the other thing that's sort of tricky is you also have to know when your close-up is, when the money shot is going to be. Because you can't get super crazy in the wide shot.
Right.
You don't want to empty your tank in the wide shot or even the medium shot. You want to wait till they're, till they're right there for that. And so I would have that conversation if it's an independent film, or even if it's not. I would have that conversation with the director. I would have that conversation with a few people going, hey, here's where I need to be. You've got to tell me when we're right here.
Yeah.
Because that's when I'm going to really unload. And so everybody's process is different. But if you have a thing in your life that made you very, very sad at some point, and almost everyone does, that's where I go to get to fill up my tank, to get that emotion out. And when I think about that, it comes down to preparation. If you've got the lines so well prepared in your head, you can put that aside and go to your dog and go, God, if my dog died, what if my dog died, and then you can deliver your lines with that as your memory. And then once it starts going, man, there's sometimes you can't turn it off. But you got to make sure that you make sure it's that shot and not the wide shot where you're like, ah! They're like, okay, we're going to do it again. You're like, wait, no, that was it. That's all I got. So I would save that, but I would test it. I would test it in the medium a little bit, dip your toe in it a little bit, get it bubbling up, and then when they go tight, let it loose. And here's the other thing. It's a catchphrase, but fake it until you make it is also another one. You know what I mean? You just start to go there. A lot of times we can all get ourselves worked up if we want to. So, but practice it at home.
Practice from home.
Yeah, practice from home. And then once you, like I've done that where I've rehearsed it, and I think, God, I better stop because I'm really emotional at home. I hope I can do that when I get to the set. And you can. You just have to get yourself in that, take a quiet moment, talk to the director, find out when your close-up is, and then let the dogs out.
That's part of your homework, and that's such good advice that you just gave. Like that's experience actually that you gave. But it's part of your homework is figuring out what those triggers are.
Yeah.
Sit down and think about the things that really upset you. For me, my dad dying, and even any thought around that takes me to a place or animals being tortured, or there's certain things that I know in this world really break my heart, and every single time.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to identify for you, and then identify memories of being madly in love, and memories of extreme joy and laughter.
Yeah.
Identify those things, and then sit and practice conjuring up those feelings. And really, just the thoughts conjure those feelings. The thoughts instantaneously create the feelings.
Yeah.
So you really just have to start thinking about it. And
Write them down. You can write them down too.
Write them down.
Yeah.
You keep getting more hands. I don't know about this. Rose, thank you for your question. Lenore, Erica, and Phil. Lenora.
Okay. This is my last question.
It's our first question, isn't it?
No, it's my second.
Oh, okay. I missed that one.
So I was in a class last month, and the other party was having a hard time on delivering their part. They were having a hard time connecting with their tone and just the whole delivery of their part. So I wanted to know, how do you stay afloat yourself when that happens?
Question.
So when your scene partner is struggling, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, when your scene partner is struggling, I always like to lend them a hand. working on stage is so wonderful because it's so much magic happens. And, if, when you're doing a play or you're doing something on stage, anything goes. And so if your scene partner is struggling, you can ask them, what's going on? Like if they're supposed to ask you a question and they can't think of the question, you can even look at them and go, I don't know what's going on with you, but it seems like you want to ask me something. You always want to know when dinner's ready. Is that what you want to ask me? And then like, oh, that's what I was, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to ask you when dinner was, so you can sort of guide. That's part of that preparation thing where you know your lines and their lines so well that you can bring them back to wherever they need to be. And so it helps sometimes to guide your scene partner if you have to carry them. Or, you can even say their line or hint to their line. And, listen, here's the great part about class. It's a safe place. You can go, you can make mistakes, you can try new things, you can try stuff out, and it's class, man. You're up on stage, you're doing what you want to do, and so I always tried to guide my, and here's the other thing: don't pretend like it's not happening. I did a scene in class where I was, it was Goodfellas, and it was the scene where Ray Liotta's wife comes to prison and brings him some cocaine, and he's like, don't do that here. Well, I was playing a prison guard. I was just sort of an extra in the scene. It wasn't my scene. But I got in a lot of trouble for this by the teacher, and it taught me a valuable lesson. And that is, during the scene, they were arguing, and she pulls out this Ziploc of flour. It was supposed to be cocaine. And they have an argument, and she goes to hit him. Somehow, somebody hits the bag, and the cocaine goes everywhere. Now, I'm the prison guard, and I'm standing there just looking around, and then they finish the scene, and the first thing the teacher says is, "What were you doing? Cocaine was everywhere. Like you're not a potted plant. You're the security guard. I know they just had you come into the scene as an extra, but Jesus, you can't just stand there." So my advice is don't just let the uncomfortableness sit there. Address it. Address the elephant in the room, and ask the person what's going on with you, and then you can move. You can manipulate the scene just by stopping and asking them what's going on, or continuing on. And even if you jump their lines, it just keeps it flowing a little bit more.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah. Have you ever had a bad script that it was hard for both parties to kind of carry out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I did a film called Valley of Love. And it was a French film with Gerard Depardieu and Isabelle Huppert. And so, they're just giant actors in France. And so the script was in French. And so when they translated it, it didn't make sense. And so when I was in the waiting room and a couple of actors are milling around, and one of them says, "Does this script make sense to you?" And all they wanted to do was complain about the script. And I'm not having any of that in the waiting room. So I just go, "Yeah, I don't know, man. What are you going to do?" So I just kept, and it didn't make sense to me either, but I thought, I'm supposed to be upset. We're having a conversation in a bar, and so when I go in there, I'm going to be Dan Warner in a bar being pissed off because he was supposed to sign my book, and he signed it Robert De Niro instead of his name, and I caught him later in the bar, and we had an altercation. And so, again, my default is being a real person in a real place, having a real experience. And so that will bring almost any scene back on track. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Dan, there's something amazing listening to an actor who knows his business. There's nothing better than that, man.
Thank you.
I love it. Erica Anderson. And then Phil, and then we got to let this beautiful man get back to his life.
Yeah.
Erica, what's happening, girl?
Hello. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's just been amazing to hear, you talk about your story and your experience and just giving all these gems for us. So first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
So my question is more based off of like, when you're trying to get into the business, when you're trying to book that first co-star, that guest star, and you're starting to create your own content to create more opportunities for yourself. What is, and I may have missed this because I had to step out for a minute, but what are your thoughts around like just creating your own short films, creating your own web series back to back, and just creating those creating the roles that you feel like would be best that you would want to play in, therefore showing people what you can do instead of just kind of being boxed in. Could you talk on that? Because I'm currently working on a few things, and I just want to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I think that's a great question, and I think that is a brilliant thing to do. Richard Lawson always said, make Hollywood plan B. And I really like that because he said, and he was my teacher and mentor for a long time, and he said, listen, create your own work, create your own content. Because if you sit around, excuse me, you sit around and you wait for Hollywood, you wait for that co-star spot, and you wait for that to come out so you can get that little clip to put on your reel, man, you are going to be waiting for a long time. Excuse me. I did for years, I had a scene that I did with a buddy of mine in the parking lot of the Women's Center in Hollywood, and we did a scene from, I don't even remember what it was, but we were using the street light. It was at night. We used the street light, and it shone down on the car. It was a car scene. There was 3 of us. And then the camera guy was outside. So we had the window rolled down. He was shooting through the window. The light was coming in through the windshield. We duct taped a hose on the hood on the top of the car, and so water was coming down on the other side, so it looked like
it was raining.
Yeah, and because the camera was right here, and I got to deliver my lines, it was my best piece of my reel for the longest time.
Oh.
Because people got to see this. They got to see me reacting and thinking and being emotional and talking about my wife and all these things. And all the other stuff, by the time the editor gets a hold of it, by the time it airs and you don't get cut out of it, man, it's going to take forever. So, excuse me, so doing your own content, building your own, doing roles that you know that you'd be great at, I think that is absolutely the way to go, and I wish I knew that 20 years ago, because I would have done more and more and more of that. And listen, the way technology is now, the way, all the work. So here's the other thing, though, that's super important. That is, get quality people. Get someone who's a good DP. Get someone who knows light. Get someone who knows sound. Sound is so important. You can cut around bad acting. You can cut around bad cinematography. You can't cut around bad sound. So if sound is bad, your stuff's going to sound amateurish, and it's going to take them out of it right away. They're going to go, oh, student film. But if your production value is good, it's better to have nothing than to have something crappy. Yeah. Because if you have something crappy, they're going to go green. They're green. They don't know what they're doing. Wait until you get, beg, borrow, steal, barter, whatever you have to do to get a good DP, a good sound person, a good director. And listen, all they need is 15 seconds of you doing something great.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be something so sort of giant. It can be something as small as I don't know. She was on the bus. She was at the bus stop. And the guy came up in the van. And she was gone before I could get to my phone. I don't know. That's it. That's all you need. A little tiny clip of you doing something really nice. And get a couple of those and a couple of comedic parts, and you mush those together. Listen, they don't watch more than, I'm sorry to tell you this, and you probably already know this, they don't watch more than 90 seconds of your reel. They just don't. Put your best stuff first. Put your most powerful stuff first. They're going to watch it, and if they're looking for a certain thing, and as soon as they find it, they turn that shit off. they're moving on to the next thing.
Okay, so there you have it. That was the interview. It went on for quite some time. I'm going to do part 2 because there was a lot more interview left. But if you have any questions or comments about anything I did, leave them in the questions and comments section down below. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you next week on another episode of The Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. Do, 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 the Brady Bunch. That's the way we became the Brady Bunch.